How's it going, everybody? In this video, I wanted to go over the Cisco certification track program, how everything works with inside of Cisco with their certification program, what the different levels of certification are, kind of give you an idea as to the hierarchy to them, the certification process, how you go about getting registered for an exam, how long you have to take an exam, how long is it good for once you've passed, things like that. I kind of go over some of the things you need to know about getting your certification. And if you're starting off and you don't know anything about it, hopefully this is going to fill in some knowledge gaps and go from there. And before I get into that, I actually want to give you kind of an overview of where I'm at with my certifications and stuff like that, so you have an idea of where I'm at, and that'll kind of give you an idea as to where you should go. Tell you what certs I have and what's the reason why I got the certifications I did. So, for me, certification meant being able to prove myself in a given area of IT to a potential employer. So, they could look at my resume and say, okay, this guy's got his A+ certification, he's got a CCNA, so he obviously knows PCs, he knows basic networking, he understands how routing and switching works to the basic level, stuff like that. So, it was a way for me to validate my skills to an employer, and that potentially could have earned me the job. Now, I came from warehousing and logistics. I spent 10 years doing that prior to getting into IT, so I was late getting into it. I know a lot of guys that are my age, I'm in my early 30s, that they would get into Cisco. They were right out of college, right out of high school. They jump into college. They get Microsoft, or I'm sorry, go get a master's or bachelor's degree in computer sciences or whatever, then get into Microsoft, and then eventually move into Cisco or whatever the case may have been. I know a lot of guys that started off in Microsoft and moved into other vendors. But my primary goal, and this is actually what I did, I went out and I got the CompTIA A+. I got that certification, and I've had it about 2 years now. And I went out, I got the Cisco, and I'll put it under here. I got the CCENT, CCNA, and CCNP. And at this level, I also have CCNA Security. So I have RNS, that's supposed to be an R, RS, and I have Security to go along with that. Actually, we'll just keep it at SEC. So that's what I have. Those are my certifications. Oh, and I also have VMware. Whoa, with that right here. VMware. I have the VCA DCV for VMware Certified Associate and Data Center Virtualization. So I know vSphere, I know vCenter, things like that. So actually, everything you're seeing when I'm doing all my Cisco recordings is actually running on ESXi. The Windows 7 box that I'm running is actually running on ESXi. It's all virtualized. So I'm running GNS3 in a virtual environment. So now I got the A+. That got me a lot of interviews. It got me offers on the table, stuff like that. All entry-level positions. It was no experience. Give me an entry-level job, help desk, a lot of stuff like that. So that's what I did for the first, it's probably 6-7 months that I was in the industry. Then I went out and I got my CCENT, and I pushed hard to get that because CCENT was a difficult certification for me to grab. And you have to understand, I was coming from zero experience. So everything that I was learning was from watching videos and the basic networking that I was doing on my desktop support job. So I was doing level 1, level 2, and level 3, and I really wasn't experienced enough to really do level 2 and level 3. And now that I've been doing it for a couple of years, I've been doing it for a while now, I see what's going on, I understand how to troubleshoot things, I understand how registries work and stuff like that. So I've done a lot of on-the-job training has brought me up to speed now to where I'm getting senior support engineer positions for different companies with VMware, Microsoft, Cisco. I'm getting those offers now because I have the experience and the understanding of how this stuff works. That's how I got into it. CCENT kind of put me on the track of I wanted to do Cisco. I got into networking. I enjoy it. I got the CCNA because that was like that was a certification that everybody wants. Then I started going to my CCNP like 4 hours after I got my CCNA, and started charging through that. And it took me 4 attempts to pass 3 exams. So failed route switch or once, passed the second time, passed switch the first time, and passed T-shoot the first time. So that was a monumental certification for me because it was a lot of money, a lot of time. There's 3 exams for that. It's route switch and T-shoot. It takes a long time to go through, and I'll explain how each one of the certifications work individually here in a minute. But that's what I have right now. I'm actually studying right now for my CCIE in routing and switching. That's my endeavor right now, and I'll in a minute here, once I get towards the end, I'll explain my study methods and how I'm going about that in case you're wondering how I'm going about doing my studies and stuff like that. So we'll go through that here in a few minutes. Next thing I want to talk to you about is the actual certification pyramid, as you see right here. Now this is my mock-up of what you see on Cisco's website, and the reason why I'm breaking it down into 5 sections is because there's actually 5 different levels of certification. So you start off with the entry level. Now there's the 2 exam route from Cisco for CCNA for people that are coming into it are know very little to no networking behind them. Now this is just my opinion on how this equates, or the lateral or equal transition. If you go out and you get the CompTIA and Network Plus certification, then you're definitely in line to go after CCNA. Or JNCIA, or HP's entry level, or any other vendor out there. It doesn't have to be Cisco, just that's the vendor I chose to go after. But CCENT is going to give you the basics understanding of what is CCP/IP, what is OSI, what is DHCP, what is DNS. It's going to answer a lot of these questions. Some of these questions were answered with A+, but A+ is more of your desktop support. What makes up a hard drive? You know, you've got tracks, you've got clusters, you've got trying to think off the top of my head, you've got spindle. I mean, that's just some of the logical aspects. You got partitions, things like that. There's a lot of stuff to a hard drive. You know, understanding the master and slave. You're going to deal with IDE. How is that different from SATA? Things like that. That's what A+ is going to dive into. You know, what's the registry like? If you deal with this, you know, you got a user that's got a printer error. Do you understand what the PCL, the printer control language, is versus, you know, LPT port versus your USB connections versus a network printer where you share it? All kinds of different stuff you can dive into. It's a very encompassing exam, but it encompasses a lot of stuff because that's what you're going to deal with in the real world. There's 5 guys, the company I work for now, that do desktop support. They're good at what they do because 2 of them have A+. They know what they're looking at. They don't have to come to a guy like me that's been doing networking for the past 18 months and say, hey, why is this coming up? I can show them, hey, if you're from the local subnet, if you do an ARP space -A, it's going to show you all the IP addresses on your local subnet. You know, little tips and tricks you'll learn on the job doing day-to-day operations. But so we have the entry-level certification here, which is going to be, you know, you understand what's going on. You can get on a device, and the CCENT that I got was about a year and a half ago. I got it, and or close to 2 years now. Yeah, about 2 years. I got it, and that was a big deal for me because it validated I have some skills. I understand how wireless works, that type of stuff. The new CCENT, I didn't take those exams. Simply for the fact that I was working on my CCNP when the new CCNA came out, the 200-120. So that's where it came out, and I went with that. So I've actually recorded up-to-date information on both ICND1 and ICND2, which is going to be CCNA1, CCNA2. Well, I should say CCENT and CCNA. So you could take an exam for this one and go get your CCENT and take the ICND2 exam. ICND1 and ICND2 together make CCNA, if you weren't aware of that. So you take ICND1, which is Interconnecting Cisco Networking Devices, Part 1 and 2 equals CCNA, in case you were curious about that. There's also, that is, what is that, 200 dash, if you take the 100-101, I think, I don't remember the exam codes off the top of my head, but if you take ICND 1 and 2, they get you CCNA. If you take 200-120, that equals CCNA. This is the composite, or you're taking both exams at the same time. So it's twice as much money. So these, I believe these exams are 150 apiece currently, and you take the exam and you pass this guy, and you earn CCNA. So that's the idea behind how it actually works from that perspective. Now that's pretty straightforward. Then you can move into, once you have these two right here, they're good for 3 years. Actually, every certification from here down is 3 years. So you get it, you pass an exam, it's good for 3 years. So if you're 2 years, 11 months, and 2 weeks in, and you go and you pass, so you've got this guy, and then you go in 2 years, 11 months, and 2 weeks. So just short of 3 years, you go in and you pass this exam. So you pass ICND2, then you have recertified this guy, so you recert here, and then you earn this guy. So now you're not only a CSEM, but you're also a CCNA. So that's how that works. Now, I often get questions, how does it work when you have a CCNA but you want to go CCNP? You want to validate your skills to a higher level. Simple. Well, the next thing you do is you look at it, you go out and you go after CCNP. So from the professional level, there's 3 exams. You have route, you have switch, and you have T-shoot. Each one is currently, I believe it's like $200 is what I paid for each exam. You have to pass the minimum score, which is any Cisco certification. There's a minimum score to pass, and your score is equal to or higher than the minimum score, you automatically pass. And then you have to wait, 2-3 days sometimes. Actually, for me, recently it's only been a few hours, and Cisco automatically goes in and they grade it to make sure it's official from Pearson VUE, and then once it's official, then you get the congratulatory email. Congratulations on becoming Cisco certified, yada yada yada. You get the email. You get the digital copy, like a PDF copy of your certification with your name on there, your certification number, the validation code, things like that. Now with this guy right here, again, 3 years for every exam that you take. So you have to take route, switch, and T-shoot and pass all 3 before you get CCNP. So I passed all 3 and I was able to earn my CCNP. Now let's say you take route, a couple months after you take CCNA, you pass that. How does that work? Well, what it does is, if you take and you pass route, that will automatically recertify all of the certifications you already have that are associate and below. Unless you already have some other sort of certification from another track. So, like, let's say you start off in security, and then you decide to go route switch. Well, you get your CCNA route switch, and then you decide to go, you go off grab CCNA security, and then you jump into CCNP security. Maybe you have CCNP security, but you want to double back and you want to get CCNP route switch. Well, what ends up happening with your security CCNA, or you go out and you pass an exam, pass any professional level exam. Doesn't matter. You may not be getting the certification itself, the umbrella, but you pass an individual exam that's encompassed in the certification. That will automatically recertify anything professional level and below. So I said associate level and below, but if you don't have the professional level certification already, it's only going to recertify the associate and below. So once you've earned the professional level certification, so CCNP route switch, security, data center, whatever the case might be, once you've earned this professional level accreditation, and then you go and you pass either another track or you recertify in that same track. So let's say I go in, I take switch again in 2 years or whatever it might be, and I pass switch, and I take and I recertify that, and let's say during that time I've taken and earned CCNP security, which I'm actually studying for very lightly right now. So you take and pass CCNP security. What will end up happening is you take switch from route switch, it'll recertify every one of the professional level and below certifications. And that's how it's going to go with Cisco. Now, you go off, let's say for instance you go off and you've got route switch, and then you go after expert. So you want to get your CCIE in route switch, like I am. Well, there's two parts to CCIE, any CCIE certification, regardless of the track you're in. You have to pass the written theory exam, which is usually 90 to 110 questions, and you have 2 hours to do it in. Yeah, you're pretty much banging it out. The idea behind that is when you're hitting that, you know what you're doing. You know how QoS works, you know how MPLS works, you know how BGP works. It's all theory. I don't know if there's any simulations on it because I have not taken the exam yet. I've got it scheduled for the end of June, but I'll probably push it back until I see some people actually taking the exam. But that's how it works from the written. And then that only qualifies you to take the lab. Then what you do is you take your written exam score and you take $1,500 per track, and you go to Cisco's website and you schedule the lab exam. And right now, because Route Switch version 5 is about to go live next Wednesday on 6/4, you're only going to be able to schedule Route Switch version 5. And honestly, I don't even think you can schedule the lab right now. I don't know if it's schedulable yet. I've scheduled the written, but I have not scheduled the lab because obviously I haven't taken the lab because it hasn't come out yet. So that's how that works. So you schedule the lab, you pick a date, and you pay $1,500. I don't know how that all works yet with the actual how they take your money and stuff like that. I haven't been through that process yet, but I'll let you guys know when it comes to that point. So at that point, what you end up doing is now you're on the timetable. You have 18 months to make your first attempt. What happens if you don't? I honestly don't know. I haven't gotten that far. I would assume that you have 18 months to make your first attempt, and if you don't, the cert expires and you have to retake it. Now, I have seen that the written exam is good for 3 years, but my guess is that 18 months thing, I'm not 100% sure how that actually works. I don't plan on waiting 18 months from the time I pass the written to take the lab, but you never know what's actually going to happen. So that's how that works. Now let me do this real quick. Okay. So let me now that we're at the expert level, let's explain how this works. Now you've taken and you've passed your written and lab exam, so now you're a CCIE. Congratulations. Now you have your number, which every CCIE is given a number, and that number stays with you until you either it stays with you. I don't know any CCIE, at least that I've ever heard of, that has taken the lab, passed, earned a number, and then let it expire and has to come and try to get it again. I don't know anybody that's ever done that. Is it possible to recertify? I'm sure it probably is, but I've never ran into a situation where that's been the issue. Now, the CCIE is only good for 2 years. But once you have your number, so you have your number, you only have to take the written exam again every 2 years. So you don't have to go sit for the lab every 2 years. So you take the written exam every 2 years, and most of the time what ends up happening is guys that do that, say for instance you've got, what I plan on doing is once I have my CCIE and route switch, I'm going to go after CCNP security, and at the same time also studying design, and we'll talk about CCDA and CCDP, and we'll talk about those here in a minute. But so the idea behind this is now, for every additional certification you pass, it's above or equal to the one you've got now. So I go and I pass, I have a CCNP in routing and switching. I go out and I pass the CCNP exam in security. So whatever a new one is, I haven't really looked at them yet. So you pass one of those exams, that'll automatically recertify my CCNP, my CCNA security, my CCNA route switch, and my CCENT. It'll recertify all of them. Now the beautiful thing about that is once I go and I pass my CCIE written, that also recertifies my NP, my NA route, my NA security, and my ENT. So it recertifies all of them. And then Once I pass my lab, it does the exact same thing. Now, that's the whole idea behind it. And so once you pass your written, let's say you have IE in route switch, but you don't want to go any farther than that. That's the only CCIE you care about. Every time you pass the written exam, it automatically recertifies that level certification, so you're expert, and then everything below it. So professional, associate, and entry level. Does them all. That's one of the things I like about Cisco certification. I know a lot of guys that have 2 and 3 CCIEs, and they go out and they take one exam every 2 years, and it recertifies and keeps all the other ones up to date. Cisco doesn't want you taking multiple exams throughout the year, unless you want to. But to keep up with your current ones, they want you to constantly be moving forward. So they're going to automatically push you through and give you the opportunity to recertify on a per exam basis. So it's going to recertify everything. When I passed my CCNP and passed my CCNA security 2 weeks later, I recertified my CCNA route switch and my ENT. And then when I took my NA security, it only recertified my NA route, my NA route switch and my ENT. It didn't do anything for my CCNP. So that goes to show you how it actually would work. Now, from a perspective of, I don't know if you guys are noticing this right here, but the idea behind design takes you a step farther than at the expert level. So you have design. For every track that's out there, I think I have all of them listed here. For every track, there's an associate level, a professional level, and expert level, except for video, which I'll put right here, VID. There's a CCNA video out there, and actually voice is now collaboration, so excuse me for that. Video is there, but it's only CCNA. So you can do this one if you'd like, but you're only going to be able to go to the CCNA level with it. There's an associate level, professional, and expert level for every certification except for video, obviously. But the design track is the only one that's a little more unique, where when you go after, you pass the written and lab for each one. So there's going to be a written qualifier and a practical lab for every expert level certification that there is. Design's a little bit different than all the other ones because it's an 8-hour prometric exam, where the other ones are an 8-hour hands-on lab, where you're actually at a Cisco location. Whether if you're here in the U.S., it's either in San Jose, California, or RTP, North Carolina. So depending on where you want to go. I'm going to be going to San Jose. That's where I want to take mine because I've never been to California. So that's where I'm going to take mine. The idea now is with the design, you have the architect level down here. So that's how you actually get to the architect level. You go out and you get your CCDE, the design expert, and then you go in and you apply to become a Cisco certified architect. Now, I don't know much about this exam other than the fact that it's like super expensive, and normally when you're going for the architect level, you're already some sort of architect already. So I've only heard of 3 people in the world that have it that I know of, which is the first 2. If you go Google, or I'm sorry, if you go on YouTube and you type in CCAR, our first 2 Cisco certified architects, there's only those 2 that I know of, which were the first 2, and the other one is Russ White. He is also a Cisco certified architect. Beyond that, that's the only 3 in the world that I know of. And it's a panel exam, which is different than the other ones. You have to submit design, large-scale designs that you worked on. You have to already be a CCDE in order for you to be able to qualify. It's like the qualification to go take the architect. And then from there, you are talking both technical, business, and talking both sides of the house, because you're not just dealing with the management of the company. You might be talking to senior executives like CEO, CFO, CIO, and also senior engineer, principal architects. So that's the idea behind it. When you're talking architect level, from the gist that I got is you should be able to go into a conversation with the CEO of a company and then be able to talk to the CEO from a company standpoint. What's the benefit of doing XYZ technology? And then The next question you would be, okay, if I want to run MPLS with this particular technology and route DMVPN over it with GetVPN as the option for encryption, and then be able to tunnel traffic from point A to point B with these specific subnets, what is the criteria that I would need to follow for that? So you need to be able to talk to the CEO for 1 minute, and the very next minute be able to answer a highly technical question the next. And also not only be technical, but also consider design at the same standpoint. So architect is a very, very encompassing exam, which I have no desire to go after. I will not go after that. I might down the road go after CCDE, the design expert level, but I have no desire to go after the architect unless the company comes to me and says, "Hey, we want you to become an architect." Then I might consider it. But in my current position, I'm an network infrastructure engineer, and I'm happy with the way things are working out with that job. And I'm on Cisco equipment all day long, working on switches and routers, and so from that respect, I have no desire to do anything like hardcore design to the architect level. I can, during your day-to-day job, when you're working in the real world, taking certification out of the mix, because in the last couple of days I've been troubleshooting a lot of phone issues, and I'm not a phone guy. Nothing against voice guys or phones in general, just not my cup of tea right now. And being able to go back and forth between being able to explain something to my IT director. So my IT director and then the infrastructure director come to me, and they're asking me why the provider why we're having issues with the provider when we have other providers that work just fine. And then be able to take a technical spin, which these guys are already somewhat technical to begin with, and be able to take that technical understanding of how things are working, talk to the other engineer. We're able to discuss things amongst ourselves and come up with an answer for them. And sometimes you have to do it on the fly. They want an answer right then and there. So you have to be able to take a complex network configuration and put it into a easy to understand bite-sized pieces so that you can drop it in front of a director and say, well, because of the fact that we're doing XYZ in the network, this is why we think it's not working. We're troubleshooting, we're trying a different firewall, we're trying a different internet circuit, we're trying different routing techniques, we're trying different tunneling techniques, these different things to see what's going to work. Is it a hard phone issue? Is it a soft phone issue? What quality of service settings do you have put in play? How is traffic being routed? Is it a time of day? Is it too much bandwidth? Is it latency where there shouldn't be? All these different pieces of the pie come together, and quite frankly, I haven't seen anything in certification that covers that. You can go and you can know QoS inside and out, left, right, and center, in it, around it, and through it. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to solve the situation. You have to be able to take what you've learned on the job and be able to apply that to the industry. So you might be a CCIE in all 7, 8 tracks or whatever it is, and still struggle with what you're handed. Now, I'm not a voice guy, so SIP and the way that it works behind the scenes, I'm not that knowledgeable in it. So it's not like you come to me and say, "Hey, I've got this issue with this TCP stream. Can you take a look at it?" I understand TCP. I can explain TCP to you. The three-way handshake with the SYN, the SYNAC, and the SYNAC-AC, all that other good stuff. I have no problem explaining how that stuff works. If you open a web page, that is a TCP session. Even if you're looking at a video, you still have a web page that you're sitting on. And there might be a UDP video stream coming to you, but it's still a TCP web connection that you have there. So being able to switch gears comes into play. So there's a little bit of finesse with your handling. These are on-the-job learned skills. If you're a people person, you can talk to somebody, you should be able to take that information and be able to divvy it out. One benefit that I find, and my boss has actually given me kudos for this, is I teach it. So I'm able, knowing how to deliver the material in an understandable way definitely comes into play. So if you can take a technical topic, say for instance DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, if you can take that, you can explain what it is, what it does, why you would use it, where, when, and how, and then from there be able to explain from a start to finish how it should work. If it's not working, where you should look. Then from that perspective, you should be able to explain and be able to work your way through a troubleshooting scenario. I don't usually have DHCP errors or issues, but they do pop up from time to time with latency and stuff like that. But for the most part, that's something that you would have to know as a service. So knowing core versus non-core topics on the exam is also important. So, but that's how it actually works. Now, let's say, for instance, you want to go get Cisco certified. What do? Well, for one, you need to go to Pearson VUE's website. So www.vue.com, VUE.com. You go there, you create an account. So you create an account with Cisco Systems, and once the account is created, you're able to go in there and you're able to browse what available exams are there. If the exam is there, you can click on it, choose the language you want to take it in, go to the next page, select a location to take it at, and the date to take it at, or take it on. So a date and time. Once you've done that, then the next step is to go pay for it. Once you're at that point and you enter your credit card information and you go in, you go through, Cisco will send you Pearson VUE will send you an account or a confirmation, date, time, and place where you're going to take the exam, how much your credit card was charged. There's never tax, it's a flat rate. And then you go in, you go to that location, make sure you carry 2 forms of ID. You're going to need a photo ID and I always use a credit card because I have to sign the back of it. So you have to use a photo ID. And I believe they take passports. I believe they take, if you're from a visa, or like if you're from another country and your work visa, I believe they take those. I've never had to deal with those. But you take 2 forms of photo ID, or photo ID and a credit card or debit card, something you've signed. You take that with you, and then your picture's taken at the site. You have to sign an NDA agreement form, a checklist that says you won't talk about what's on the exam, and then the proctor will take you into to wherever your computer is going to deliver the exam to you. You sit down, you go through the survey. There's always a survey. Not a survey, a tutorial. There's a tutorial. Usually they give you about 15 minutes to take that. I always go in there for every one of my Cisco exams I've ever taken. The very first thing that I always do, and this is a test taker tip, I always write down the subnetting from /6/17 through 32. I write down the slash notation, the binary equivalent to that, so 255, or .128, .0, .192, .0, so on and so forth all the way through. And that way here, and then how many hosts per bit are going to be there. So 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2048, so on and so forth, all the way to /27 or /17. I do that so that when I'm in the exam, I don't have to sit there and think about it. Even though I can rattle it off the top of my head now, I don't have to think about it. I can say, okay, the exam is asking me this number, so all I have to do is reference what I've got written down. It's a no-brainer. I know for a fact that's the answer, and that's all I have to do. I like doing that because it makes it easier for me to rush through the exam. And don't misunderstand. I don't rush through the exam. I always have a sense of urgency because you are timed. The very first time I took the ROT exam, I ran out of time and I didn't answer all the questions. And honestly, I was not prepared. I was not prepared for the exam. I got my butt handed to me. I scored like mid 600s, or no, it wasn't even that. It was low 600s or high 500s, something like that. It's been a while since I've taken the exam, almost a year since I've taken the first ROT exam. I did horrible. And I'm not afraid to share that with you because I know what it's like to take an exam and fail, and you're like, wow. I looked at the score report, and I was not ready for it. I got hammered. I went to work that day, people were like, how'd you do? I was like, oh, I got killed. But, you learn from that. And sometimes you have to go take an exam. You take one on the chin. And if you're not from the U.S., taking one on the chin means you take a hit, and you keep on going. You don't sit there and you don't cry about it. You don't go home and kick the dog. You don't go home and tell your wife that, you hate life. You suck it up and you use it. I always take those as constructive criticism. What do I need to study? because obviously I wasn't good enough to pass the exam. I looked at it. I took I went home. I studied everything over again. I started from fresh. I went through Internet Network Experts, CCNP Route Switch Bootcamp. I went all the way through it. I followed along. I downloaded the workbooks from INE's site. If you go to if you Google the IEOC or go to INE's website and go down to the online community, and you go down, you scroll down to the bottom to where CCNP is at. The very first thing that's there is Brian McGann. He put up a link that's like a Dropbox link. You can download the workbook for CCNP for the previous version to Route Switch and T-Shoot, the BSCI, BCMSN, and whatever the other two exams were. You download that workbook. BSCI is almost dead on. There's a few things that have been removed and added to it since then. And then I also use BCMSN and to study for my route and switch exams. And then that's how I was able to study for my route and switch exams. I passed route the second attempt. I passed switch on my first attempt, and I used their troubleshooting. I actually used CBT nuggets and INE for T-shooting. And I labbed up everything I could think of in my home lab that I have here at home. And I was able to go in there and knock T-shoot out on the first attempt. I got almost a perfect score. But that's how that goes. So you have to be diligent when you're going through your certification. And I did mention at the end I would explain my study method, so I will actually do this. So my study method right now is actually pretty straightforward. What I'm doing right now is I'm taking the blueprint and I'm breaking it down into core topics. So I'm studying Core Layer 2 and Core Layer 3. For Core Layer 2, that's going to, actually let's write them over here. Core Layer 2, that's going to be your needed configuration to get things working. So VLANs, trunking, TRNK, Ether channel, which is actually an enhancement, but whatever. And then spanning tree. And then that's what I'm studying. I'm studying those core topics. It's needed to get the network running. You have to be an expert in this stuff. So don't lollygag. Don't let your meat loaf. That's a bad joke. So if you don't know what love that means, just hang around. From Layer 3, IP routing. And then we have, that's protocol independent. So protocol PIR, which means it doesn't need a dynamic routing protocol. No RIP, EIGRP, OSPF. And then I got into, that's V4 right now. And then we have, everything right now is V4. So we're going to do, right now I've already done and released RIP and IP routing for you guys already. And then I'm going through EIGRP. And then I will go over OSPF. And then from there, we will do redistribution. We will deep dive redistribution. The reason we're doing that before we get into BGP is because you need to be able to understand how to get BGP routes into OSPF and OSPF routes into BGP, all that good stuff. So redistribution. And then comes BGP. After that, then we have MPLS, and so on and so forth. And then we have our security and enhancements. But that's core. You need all this stuff right here. Everything that's here and here. This stuff right here is going to help you pass the lab. Now that doesn't mean that's all I'm working on. I'm doing a ton of reading. So what I'm doing is I downloaded the config and command reference, CMD references from Cisco's website for 15.3. M and T. I currently run in GNS3 on 7200s. I run 15.2 4 S2. That is an S. So that's the iOS image I'm running. The reason I went from M to S is because there were a handful of additional commands that were available in the S train that were not available in the M train. I would recommend knowing the feature navigator, so cisco.com/go/FN for feature navigator. And then you're able to plug in whatever your platform is, the operating system, the train of, or the sub-release of operating system, or the level of operating system, and then the what the operating system is. So like IP services versus advanced enterprise services. And everything I'm running is in advanced enterprise. So that's what I'm running. So that's what I'm running internally on my home network. And I'm covering everything that's on the blueprint. If it's on the blueprint, I'm studying it. So MPLS Atom, anything over MPLS. Then we have Layer 2 VPN, L2 TP v3, Layer 2 Tunneling Protocol version 3. So I'm studying all this material. If it's on the blueprint, I am reading on it. I am watching Cisco live videos on it. I am reading documentation on it. I am labbing it up. All this type of stuff that's out there, and I'm going above and beyond. I'm Googling things as I'm going through my preparation. Okay, so I hit a debug, and I'm looking at the debug output, and I want to know what a particular section of the debug means. So I go and I Google EIGRP debug, and I put this in there, and it will usually lead to a document somebody put in somewhere. To me, it's pointless information that I want to know. You might be going, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't, really. But if you want to be an expert in how something works, you understand how every part of it works. Not just knowing how to configure it, not knowing just how to verify it, but you know how to go in there and troubleshoot it. So to me, if I'm troubleshooting something and I find out that unicasts are being blocked, but multicasts are not, that might come in handy. So knowing how that works, and maybe it's unreliable and there's some sort of TCP flag that I need to look out for, that's information I would want to know how to look at. So that's pretty much the extent of what I've got going on right now. If you have any questions or concerns, do feel free to drop me a line on my YouTube channel. I definitely get those. I actually check my email 3-4 times a day for that. So if you want to drop me a line on that, you can. I also my personal email. If you want to drop me a line on that, do feel free to do that as well. I do. That comes right to my cell phone, and it actually just chimed a few minutes ago. I'll have to check my email and see what's going on. If you're curious about the route switch and service provider, I have not done anything with service provider in the past couple of weeks, and I'm choosing to keep it that way because INE is running their live version 5 advanced technologies class, and I'm currently focusing on that. So eventually I will get back to service provider. I'll start going through CCNA level, so all the different stuff you're going to see, iOS XR, things like that. We'll get that running, see how everything works, and eventually get back into the swing of things. And service provider, we'll start doing different things with getting routing working and MPLS and all other good stuff. I don't have an ME3400 to do anything with that, so don't worry about it. It's just like a layer 2 switch. There's actually one on my network right now that I do have access to, so I can kind of help you guys out with that a little bit on some things with your different VLAN types and the port types, NNI versus UNI, things like that. But beyond that, that's all I really had for you. I hope that this kind of clears up some stuff for you. If it raises more questions, feel free to drop me a line. I'm happy to help. That's why That's why the YouTube videos are here. That's why I do what I do. I believe I'm the only person out there that's putting out free CCIE training. So it definitely helps knowing the material already, and you guys are actually motivating me to go deeper than I normally would, because the deeper I go in the videos, the more you get out of it, and actually the more I get out of it. So it's actually a twofold response. So it's actually good that you guys are watching the videos and stuff like that and gaining the information and the understanding. One last side note before I quit. If anybody wants to get into a weekly 2-hour study session, I will do that. And if you are struggling with a particular topic in any particular technology and you'd like me to lab it up, or you want to understand more about something, send me your configuration, send me a topology. Maybe it's something you're doing for work, or it's a case study. I am more than happy to try to help you out with that wherever I can. So that's pretty much all I have. Like I normally say to everybody at the end of every video, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.